I have lots. Hello again, and so much welcome to Vicky Sins from World Benchmarking Alliance. You're a transformation climate lead. Was that, yes, the right title? I need to remember all the titles today. I hope so. And we have still Johan Falk, CEO of Exponential Roadmap Initiative. And we are also still in the Arctic Base Camp tent. It's lovely to be here at the Economy Stage of Impact, talking about how we can drive transition in businesses. And this session is going to focus on transition plans and as a tool to transform companies to fit within a net zero economy or a sustainable economy, and how that works, and maybe also what doesn't work. And we both have experiences from you, both of you. And I will start with Johan again to frame what does Exponential Roadmap Initiative do within transition plans? What's our role, and how do we contribute?
Yeah, why is transition plans important, or is it just another buzzword? No, I wouldn't think so. It's incredibly important. It's coming into regulations, so most companies will have to provide transition plans. Also, it will be required by your funders in order to get funding, and so on. So it's a really important force coming into place. I primarily see it as also a disruptor of how you make business plans, because actually it has to be integrated in the core of the company's business plan. So it's an incredibly good strategy to get climate and nature into companies' business plans. And from Exponential Roadmap Initiative, we've been working with and are working with some of the world-leading companies on assessing their business plans and advising on transition plans. So that's our role. Also collaborating with World Benchmarking Alliance on also criteria for transition plans.
Thank you. And Vicky, please tell me about your work in World Benchmarking Alliance and what you do, and also what the importance of transition plans, what you've seen so far.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for hosting me today. So for the ones that don't know, World Benchmarking Alliance, a global NGO, really looking into what do the world's 2,000 most influential companies should actually be doing in accelerating transformational change. And I look after what these companies should do on climate, which involves setting up and creating a transition plan. And Johan, to your point, I think it's very important to start also shifting some of the narrative around climate transition plans, because it is actually a navigation tool for business in a transitioning world, right? So like Johan says, it's the world is in transition. We will see a whole of economy transition happening, and it's for companies to understand what will be my role and how do I plan to be operating in that transitioned world. So one of the things that we say to companies is that we've seen a lot of commitments, right? We've seen a lot of climate commitments, and we've seen that companies say, yeah, I want to stick to 1.5 by 2050, but there's no underlying sort of plan to get to that in the near, short-term, medium and long-term future. So one of the things that we say, it's now, and it has been already for the last time, but now very much a focus on how are you moving into that implementation phase? How are you really looking into changing your business models, really shifting cultures within companies to actually achieve that? And you speak with leaders, and it's really great to hear from Eva and from Valerie earlier today, and there are already leaders in the world. But what we also see, especially in these 2,000 companies that we assess, is currently it's not success or laggards. It's not rewarding nor punishing enough for companies to either be very advanced or very lacking behind. So it's not consequential to the success of business whether or not you're doing this well or not. So one of the things that we say, we need to push for accountability on these elements and really push companies to develop credible transition plans and not just having nice commitments out there.
Thank you. Do you think that the requirements from EU, for example, from EU regulations, will help and push this agenda, or will companies get stuck in compliance? How can we come to action?
Yeah, of course, I think regulation helps in setting of giving also confidence in this is the trajectory that is inevitable. But a transition plan is not a compliance exercise. It is way more than that, right? It's like what we say, even if you do the basic things like identifying and looking into what is the pathway for my industry, for my country in which I'm operating, or the company that I have. What external dependencies do I have in order to achieve that? And what financing needs do I have in terms of capital expenditures, the investments that need to do? If you hear this, it doesn't even have to be named a climate plan. Any CEO, business leader, any product leader, they would want to know these things because you want to be successful in your company. You want your company to be resilient. You want your company to thrive. So it should not be a compliance exercise to say, okay, I've done my due diligence in my supply chain and I ticked the box. Yeah, that's helpful because it will give you the information you need, but it doesn't help you to be successful in a navigation in the way a transition plan can.
Thank you so much. And Johan, you're talking about exponential transition plans. What do you mean by exponential transition plans? How can that?
Yeah, because on one end you would have that more tick in a box, which I think is important. We need to get all companies up to the same level just for transparency. But that won't help your business as far as I see it. So I would say on Exponential, we can look at some of the absolute leading actors, and we need to develop a lot of good practice, how you basically do it practically. But let me sort of name 3 things. The first is really it's setting a clear vision of your company and your value chain. How does that value chain, net zero regenerative value chain, look like by 2035 and so, where you basically cut out all the emissions and nature impact and have that as a guiding star, and then look at how you go from where you are today to that particular point. That is one thing. The other thing is to really think about how can you grow in this environment, for example, by transforming your complete portfolio and scaling up and winning new opportunities, both upstream and downstream. That's what the advanced companies are doing. So you can exponentially grow your business. So it's not about downsizing your business. Also, how you work with your complete value chain transformation, with your partners, investments, and funding. And I would also say how you can apply AI and digitalization in order to achieve your targets. So there you have 4 things.
Any reflections or thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I think it speaks to the sort of the due diligence and the ticks the box and or request from regulators or from disclosure platforms is the so what question, right? It's like, okay, that's that's the basic, so what? But I think the insights and the exponential part is in the now what, right? It's like, yeah, I have all this data, I have all this insight, but what do I want to do and how am I really going to sort of leapfrog into the next actions? And I think that is what really drives transformational change. Otherwise, we stay in the incremental part, like just doing a little bit more efficiently or a little bit more better on disclosure, a little bit better on achieving some things. But we need to get to that exponential, and that for me is in the now what part. And I think insights, leadership, showing the opportunities that exist, best practices, good practices, having peer groups that share these learnings with each other, that will help in really having an exponential next step in the transition.
Thanks. How do you think, how can we get more and faster adoption from companies to jump on the train? Or, I mean, not most of them are on the train, but how can we speed up and how can we get more with higher ambition despite the current state of affairs?
Yeah, and honestly, I think the most of the companies are not on the train yet, right? If we look at there are elements of the transition that companies have adopted, but if you look at the total view about companies having a full transition plan in place, I think there's still a long way to go. The current situation and geopolitical situation and other headwinds are not helping. I also think that we will see that companies might be less public about what they want to do. Maybe investors want to be less public about what they want to do. But I do think that we need to make sure that we keep on finding ways to bring companies and investors, financial institutions together for learning, because we want to be. I do strongly believe that these companies and organizations want to do the best thing. They want to navigate their organization into, a successful a next chapter in the economy. So what we need to really keep on encouraging is to say that this is beyond compliance. It is a potential to really be a successful company. We show opportunities in sectors that have all the technology in place, can already have the innovation in place, and we also need to make sure that we speak to their responsibility in that, right? If we talk about the automotive industry, they've had the policies in place, they had the technology in place. They're not really succeeding in Europe, at least. You see that there is an impact of that, but you see other countries that are accelerating on battery development, battery production. So we need to also show that it's a matter of being competitive in the future. And you don't do that by protecting and putting up barriers to protect the old. You need to embrace and see what is possible to really develop, new business models and leapfrog into the future.
Thanks. We had talked about the narrative that needs to change a bit. Johan, do you want to add to that on the competitiveness and looking at the business opportunity of tomorrow?
I think so far it's been very much focused on, the down curves and just cutting emissions. And here it's really about if we're shifting the 90% of the economy, and 90% of the global economy has net zero targets. And also the transformation is happening by incredible speed in terms of renewable energy, in terms of vehicles and so on. From a company perspective and also from a national perspective, it's really a matter of do you like to win that business and new economy or not? So I think it's really important to show the best examples and how it's driving the new economy, while also cutting emissions, and to get that positive race to the top and fear of missing out. And we need to get a critical mass, of course, of companies starting to move in the right direction, which I think is absolutely achievable.
Thank you. Final note, what do you wish for when regards to transition plans in 2025?
Now, we will be assessing 2,000 companies on their transition plan. And at COP this year, we will give a sort of a preview about what that looks like. So my wish is that all of you listening will also be there and really encourage companies to start developing these transition plans in the spirit of not thinking it's I will be in favor of the Paris Agreement, or it's not about polarizing the debate further. It's about very much coming together and say we want to really be successful in a transitioning world, and that requires us to come together. I think Valerie pointed it out earlier here in this tent to say, how can you really connect on a level to say we need this ecosystem to come together and each play our part and take our responsibility. And my wish is that at least the private sector is being called upon their responsibility to step up their game.
Thank you. And the final note, Johan, what do you wish for? 30 seconds.
Up at BLM, we like to see as many strong transition plans as possible with high integrity, but also we're working on how can we link it to positive national transition plans, because a key point is actually to get that positive action loop, because the company is doing strong transition plans also need to get strong demand and supply policies from countries who can win the new economy. So that positive circle, it's really important to show in Belém that that is a way forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you,
Thank
Johan.
you.
A warm hand. Thank you.